You've done this before. You decide you're going to change. You feel it this time, that genuine, electric feeling of real commitment. You buy the journal, you download the app, you tell yourself this is different. Day 1 goes perfectly. Day 2, still going. Day 3, you're proud of yourself. Week 1, complete. You're actually doing it. Then week 2 gets a little harder. You miss one day. That's fine, you tell yourself. One day doesn't break a streak. Then you miss 2 days in a row. Then you have a bad week, and the whole thing quietly collapses. By week 3, the journal is on the shelf, the app is deleted, and you're back exactly where you started. Except now, you feel worse because you've added another failure to the list. Sound familiar? You've probably done this cycle so many times you've started to believe the problem is you, your discipline, your consistency, your willpower. You know what you need to do and you just can't make yourself do it long enough for it to stick. Here is the truth that the entire mainstream habit industry has been getting wrong for decades. Your habits didn't fail because you failed. Your habits failed because the method was neurologically wrong from the very beginning. Every piece of standard habit advice, the 21-day rule, the habit tracker, the accountability partner, the motivational poster, is built on a fundamental misunderstanding of how your brain actually wires behavior into its permanent architecture. And once you understand how your brain actually builds habits, the real mechanism, the one backed by neuroscience rather than self-help mythology, building habits stops feeling like a willpower battle you keep losing. It starts feeling like installing software, methodical, reliable, permanent. By the end of this video, you'll have the complete neural habit lock. 5 steps that work with your brain's actual wiring to install habits so deeply they become as automatic as breathing. This is the approach neuroscientists use. This is what behavioral psychologists know that the self-help industry ignores, and once you know it, you'll never approach habit building the same way again. Let's get into it. Why mainstream habit advice fails your brain. Before we build the system, we need to understand exactly why the conventional approach collapses so reliably. Because the failure isn't random, it follows a completely predictable pattern that makes total sense once you understand what's happening neurologically. The mainstream habit model goes something like this. Decide you want a new habit. Start doing it every day. Use willpower to push through resistance. Track your streak. Don't break the chain. Repeat for 21 days until it's automatic. Every single step of this model conflicts with how your brain actually creates automatic behavior. Here is what your brain is actually doing when it builds a habit. Deep inside your brain, beneath the cortex, sits a structure called the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia is your brain's habit machine. It is ancient, powerful, and operates almost entirely outside your conscious awareness. When a behavior is repeated in a consistent context with a consistent outcome, the basal ganglia begins encoding that behavior as a chunked automatic routine, a sequence of actions that can be triggered by a cue and executed without conscious effort or decision-making. This encoding process is called habit chunking, and it is the actual mechanism behind all automatic behavior, from tying your shoes to driving a familiar route to reaching for your phone when you're bored. The basal ganglia runs these routines on autopilot, freeing your prefrontal cortex for higher-level thinking. Here is the critical problem with the conventional approach. Willpower and conscious effort are functions of the prefrontal cortex, not the basal ganglia. When you white-knuckle your way through a new habit using motivation and discipline, you are using the wrong brain system entirely. The prefrontal cortex is effortful, energy-intensive, and depletes across the day. The basal ganglia is automatic, effortless, and essentially tireless. Conventional habit advice keeps you stuck in prefrontal cortex mode, grinding through each repetition on willpower, instead of doing the specific things that trigger basal ganglia encoding. The neural habit lock is designed specifically to accelerate and deepen basal ganglia encoding. Every step targets a different mechanism in the habit wiring process. Here is how it works. The neural habit lock. 5 steps. Step 1. Shrink the habit until it feels embarrassingly small. The single biggest mistake people make when starting a new habit is making it too large. They want to build an exercise habit, so they commit to 1 hour at the gym every day. They want to build a reading habit, so they commit to 30 pages per night. They want to build a meditation habit, so they commit to 20 minutes every morning. These targets feel meaningful. They feel proportional to the size of the change they want to make, and they are neurologically catastrophic for habit formation. Here is why. Your brain's threat detection system, centered in the amygdala, evaluates new behaviors for their cost and risk. A large, effortful, time-consuming new behavior registers as a significant threat to your energy and comfort resources. The amygdala generates resistance. That resistance is what you feel as reluctance, procrastination, and the sudden, urgent need to do literally anything other than the habit. Critically, this resistance is not a weakness of character. It is a feature of your threat detection system doing its job. Your brain is genuinely trying to protect your resources from what it perceives as an unnecessary drain. You cannot overpower this system with motivation. Motivation is temporary, the amygdala is structural, but here is the exploit. Your amygdala evaluates threat based on perceived cost. Reduce the perceived cost below the threat threshold, and the resistance response does not activate. The behavior proceeds without friction, and repetition without friction is exactly what the basal ganglia needs to begin encoding. Stanford behavior scientist B.J. Fogg spent decades researching this principle and documented it extensively in his Tiny Habits framework. The research is unambiguous. Habits that begin at a size so small they feel almost pointless. 2 minutes of exercise, 1 page of reading, 3 deep breaths of meditation wire into the basal ganglia faster and more durably than habits that begin at full size, because they accumulate repetitions without triggering the amygdala's resistance response. The implementation. Take whatever habit you want to build. Shrink it until it feels embarrassingly small, not challenging small, embarrassingly small. 1 push-up, 1 sentence, 1 minute. The goal at this stage is not transformation. The goal is repetition. Repetition is the currency of habit. Collect as many repetitions as possible by making each one cost as little as possible. The size scales naturally once the neural pathway is established, but the pathway must be established first, and it can only be established through frictionless repetition. Step 2. Stack the habit onto an existing neural superhighway. Your brain already has hundreds of deeply encoded automatic routines running every day. These are the behaviors you do without thinking. Make coffee after waking up, check your phone after sitting down, grab a snack when you open the laptop. These routines are encoded so deeply in your basal ganglia that they run automatically in response to their triggering cues without any conscious decision-making. These existing routines are neural superhighways, and they are the single most powerful delivery vehicle available for a new habit. This principle is called habit stacking. Instead of trying to build your new habit in isolation, finding a new time, creating a new context, establishing a new cue from scratch, you attach it directly to an existing automatic routine. The existing routine's cue becomes the cue for the new habit. The neural activation from the existing routine carries forward momentum into the new behavior. The formula is simple. After or before I do existing habit, I will do new habit. After I pour my morning coffee, I will do 1 minute of journaling. Before I open my laptop, I will do 5 push-ups. After I brush my teeth, I will do 3 minutes of meditation. The existing habit acts as a reliable, automatic trigger that fires your new habit without requiring any conscious decision or motivation to remember. The neuroscience behind why this works is elegant. When 2 behaviors are consistently performed in sequence, the basal ganglia begins encoding them as a single, chunked routine. The neural pathway of the existing habit extends to include the new behavior. Over time, the new behavior becomes part of the automatic sequence, triggered by the same cue as the existing habit without any separate conscious initiation required. The implementation. List 5 to 10 habits you currently do automatically every single day without fail. Waking up, making coffee, brushing teeth, sitting at your desk, eating lunch, getting into bed. These are your anchor habits, the existing neural superhighways. Choose the anchor habit whose context most naturally fits your new habit. Stack your new behavior immediately before or after it. Start with 1 stack. Do not stack multiple new habits simultaneously. One new behavior per anchor is the maximum for effective basal ganglia encoding. Step 3. Design the dopamine hit. Make the habit immediately rewarding. Here is the most important thing you will hear in this entire video. Your basal ganglia does not encode behaviors based on their long-term benefits. It encodes behaviors based on their immediate reward signal. This is non-negotiable biology. Every habit your brain has ever wired in was wired in because it was followed immediately, not eventually, by a reward signal that released dopamine. The dopamine release is the encoding signal. It tells the basal ganglia this behavior produced something good, increase the probability of repeating it. Without an immediate dopamine signal, the basal ganglia has no encoding trigger. The behavior remains in prefrontal cortex territory, effortful, conscious, and dependent on willpower, indefinitely. This is why long-term benefit habits are so hard to build through conventional methods. Exercise, healthy eating, studying, saving money. The rewards for these behaviors arrive weeks, months, or years in the future. Your basal ganglia cannot use future rewards as encoding signals. It only responds to immediate rewards. So no matter how clearly your prefrontal cortex understands that exercise will improve your health in 6 months, your basal ganglia, the system that actually builds habits, receives no encoding signal and builds nothing. The solution is immediate reward injection. You engineer an immediate positive experience that follows your habit completion every single time, creating an artificial but neurologically genuine dopamine signal for the basal ganglia to use as an encoding trigger. This can be done in multiple ways. A brief physical celebration immediately after completing the habit, a fist pump, a smile, a quiet yes, triggers a genuine neurochemical response. Pairing the habit with something inherently enjoyable, listening to a specific playlist only during workouts, having a specific enjoyable drink only while reading, creates a conditioned association between the habit and pleasure. Tracking completion visibly, marking an X on a calendar, logging in an app, produces a mild but real satisfaction response that functions as a reward signal. BJ Fogg calls this shine and the feeling of authentic positive emotion immediately following a tiny habit. His research shows that this immediate positive signal is more predictive of habit formation than frequency, duration, or any other variable measured. The habit that feels good immediately is the habit that wires in. The implementation. Design your immediate reward before you begin the habit. Decide what you will feel, say, do, or experience in the 5 seconds immediately after completing your habit repetition. Make it specific, make it consistent, deploy it every single time without exception. The consistency of the reward signal is as important as the reward itself for basal ganglia encoding. Step 4. Remove all friction from the cue. Make starting automatic. Your habit will only be as consistent as its trigger, and your trigger will only be as reliable as the friction required to encounter it. This is the step most habit systems completely ignore, and it is responsible for the majority of habit failures that occur after a strong start. Here is what happens without friction reduction. You decide to meditate every morning. Your meditation app is on your phone is in your bedroom. You wake up, get distracted by notifications, make coffee, check email, and by the time you remember the meditation habit, it is 10 a.m. and the morning window has closed. The habit had a cue, morning, but the cue had no physical anchor that made the behavior obvious and immediate. The friction of having to remember, retrieve the app, find a quiet space, and actively initiate the session was enough to allow distraction to intercept the habit loop before it could complete. Friction is the enemy of habit formation. Not big, dramatic friction. Tiny, invisible friction. The extra click. The thing that's in another room. The app buried 3 screens deep. The equipment stored in a cupboard. Each of these micro-frictions adds just enough resistance to allow your brain's default mode, comfort and familiar behavior, to take over before the new habit can fire. The fix is environment design. Restructure your physical environment so that your habit cue is impossible to miss and your habit implementation requires the absolute minimum number of steps possible. Meditation habit. Put the meditation cushion in the center of your bedroom floor where you cannot walk around it without seeing it. Exercise habit. Sleep in your workout clothes or lay them out the night before directly in your path to the bathroom. Reading habit. Put the book on your pillow every morning so it is the first thing you see when you walk into your bedroom at night. Make the right behavior the path of least resistance. Make the wrong behavior, skipping the habit, the one that requires conscious effort to choose. This environmental restructuring works because your basal ganglia responds to cues automatically. The more prominent, consistent, and friction-free the cue, the more reliably it fires the habit loop. You are not relying on memory or motivation. You are relying on architecture. Step 5. Build identity before behavior. Wire the habit to who you are. This is the deepest and most powerful step of the neural habit lock. And it is the one that separates habits that last a lifetime from habits that last a month. Every habit exists at one of 3 levels. The outcome level, I want to lose 20 pounds. The process level, I will exercise 3 times per week. The identity level, I am someone who moves their body and takes care of their health. Most habit systems operate at the outcome or process level. The neural habit lock operates at the identity level, and the difference in durability is not incremental, it is categorical. Here is the neuroscience. Your brain has a powerful drive toward behavioral consistency with your self-concept. The part of your prefrontal cortex associated with self-referential processing, the medial prefrontal cortex, is constantly monitoring your behavior for consistency with your identity. When behavior aligns with identity, it produces a mild positive signal. When behavior conflicts with identity, it produces a mild aversive signal. Over time, identity-consistent behaviors become easier, and identity-inconsistent behaviors become harder. Not because of willpower, but because of this automatic monitoring and signaling process. This means that if your identity is I am someone who is not really an exercise person, even if you never consciously articulate this, every workout produces a mild identity inconsistency signal that makes the next workout slightly harder. The behavior conflicts with the self-concept. The brain resists. But if you deliberately shift your identity to I am someone who moves every day, and you begin collecting small pieces of evidence for that identity through your tiny, stacked, rewarded habit repetitions, something neurologically profound begins to happen. The habit stops being something you do and becomes something you are. The motivation question, do I feel like doing this today? Becomes irrelevant. You don't ask whether you feel like being yourself. You just are. The implementation key. Write down the identity statement that corresponds to your habit, not what you want to achieve, who you want to become. I am someone who reads every day. I am someone who moves their body. I am someone who shows up consistently. Say it daily. Look for evidence of it in your small habit repetitions. Each tiny completion is a vote cast for the identity. Enough votes and the identity becomes real, neurologically encoded in your self-concept, and behaviorally expressed automatically. If these steps are connecting with you right now, hit that like button and drop in the comments. What habit have you tried and failed to build more than 3 times? Let's talk about it. Your neural habit lock cheat sheet. Step 1. Shrink the habit until it feels embarrassingly small. Eliminate amygdala resistance through minimal perceived cost. Step 2. Stack onto an existing neural superhighway. Use an automatic anchor habit as your trigger to eliminate the need for conscious initiation. Step 3. Design the immediate dopamine hit. Engineer a specific reward in the 5 seconds after completion to give the basal ganglia its encoding signal. Step 4. Remove all friction from the cue. Redesign your environment so the habit is impossible to miss and requires minimum steps to start. Step 5. Build identity before behavior. Decide who you are becoming and collect evidence for that identity through every small repetition. Your habits have not been failing because you are undisciplined. They have been failing because you were using your prefrontal cortex, the effortful, depletable, motivation-dependent system, to do a job that only your basal ganglia can do permanently. The basal ganglia doesn't care about your goals, it doesn't care about your dreams, it doesn't care how much you want this. It cares about cues, repetition, and immediate reward. Give it those three things consistently and it will wire your habit into its architecture as permanently as any behavior you have ever automated. The system works every time, for every person, because it is not based on motivation or personality or discipline. It is based on neuroscience, and neuroscience works the same way in every human brain on the planet, including yours. Start tonight. Pick one habit, shrink it to embarrassingly small, find its anchor, design its reward, remove its friction, claim the identity it represents. Then just begin. The brain will do the rest. Like this video if the habit game just changed for you. Subscribe because next week we are breaking down the science of how to stop overthinking in 4 steps. And why your brain overthinks in the first place has nothing to do with anxiety and everything to do with a specific neural circuit you can learn to switch off. That one is going to be different from anything you've heard before. Let's go.